There are tons of videos out there on Apple Intelligence, its features, and how Apple basically dropped the ball on this one by rushing it out to the public. But the one advantage that I personally find with Apple Intelligence, because frankly speaking, I don't use the features because half of them don't work and half of them aren't even available. And it's going to be quite a lot of time before we actually see Apple Intelligence develop into something more along the likes of Google's Gemini or other AI platforms. And while we can talk about that in a separate video, what I want to tell you is the advantage of these base model devices getting that RAM upgrade simply because they had to have Apple Intelligence is the biggest upgrade, because Apple does not do things like this without charging the Apple tax. I mean, just look at the base model storage configurations that we're getting on things that I have, like the Mac Mini and the MacBook Air. You're still at 256 gigabytes of storage in 2025. That's absolutely ridiculous. And to bump that up, we know how much that costs. Apple charges an insane amount for that. So to get a RAM upgrade without paying anything extra, like $599 for the Mac Mini, now having it for so many months, and now also having the MacBook Air for a couple of months, I can say for a fact that it has made all the difference. So thank you, Apple Intelligence, not for the features that you said that were coming, but thank you for upgrading base model devices, because for people like me, now I can actually use a base model device and not spend the extra money. That's what I have been preaching with devices like the M4 Mac Mini, the M4 MacBook Air. I'm actually going to do a long video on, like a long-term review video on the Mac Mini and also the MacBook Air. But these are wonderful base model devices, and the value that you're getting for money because of this RAM upgrade really makes a big difference in performance. Look, I'm not going to give you a bunch of tests because I don't believe in tests, okay? I could sprint the fastest, right? But how is my athletic performance day to day, right? That's what matters to me. And so when I look at these devices, M4 Mac Mini has given me such good performance, and it's been my desktop computer paired along with like my desk setup. It is absolutely wonderful. And then instead of having a MacBook Air, I now have the M4 MacBook Air 15, and I was able to bump up the size and have a bigger screen in this base model configuration, and it just performs wonderfully. So if you're someone that's looking at these base model devices, now is an even better time. And let's say that you do need more RAM for whatever work there is that you're going to be doing, then what you can do is bump that up by a little bit to future-proof yourself. But the key factor here is that that starting point has already been leveled up thanks to Apple Intelligence. So even though Apple Intelligence hasn't given us all these features I promised, because here's what I'll say about Apple Intelligence. I've tried things like Genmoji and Image Playground. The writing tools are horrible. They don't work for me. I mean, I haven't not been able to get any substantial improvement out of that. Plus, with a lot of these like features like that are supposed to be enhancing, the way that you write and stuff like that, I don't think they're really all that good, because it's kind of taken away from your thought process, right? Instead of you sitting there and thinking about a paragraph and whether or not it's punctuated correctly, or whether or not it is a professional tone or a casual tone, you're taken away from your thought process. And don't get me wrong, there's situations where it's going to be totally helpful. You're in a pinch and you need to do something like that, and you have AI take care of it for you. But for the most part, I like to avoid things like that. For example, I'll tell you one way I use AI, and it's not Apple Intelligence, but it's ChatGPT. And what I do with ChatGPT is titles for my YouTube videos. I often struggle with making like the right title. So, for example, making a title for a long-term review, I instead am like, give me a YouTube title for a video about the iPhone 16 Pro, here are things that you need to take into account. And I share a couple of my experiences that I want reflected in the title. And then it comes back to me, gives me a title, and that's just something I don't have to worry about because I it's just something I struggle with. So in instances like that, it's really, really helpful. But overall, in the big picture, I don't like using AI for things that require you to be creative because I think it's taking away from your thought process and just kind of dumbing you down. Matter of fact, isn't that what Apple put in their commercials? Just dumb, lazy people sitting there. And now all of a sudden, thanks to Apple Intelligence, they have become really smart and are able to write wonderful emails and stuff. So I don't even think that's right. Like the fact that they even marketed it like that, it was absolutely silly. But that's my take on Apple Intelligence. I know I haven't talked a lot about it, even in all of my reviews, because that's just how I go about doing reviews, is that if there's not enough substantial stuff there, then it's not even worth mentioning for me. Like, I will be frankly honest with you, whether it's been the 16E, the 16 Pro, the MacBook Air, the Mac Mini, none of those devices with Apple Intelligence have given me any kind of substantial enhancement of any kind of experience. So why would I share that with you? I'm all about being straightforward and just sharing my experiences. And that is one experience that I wanted to share with you today is that Apple Intelligence, even though it's not really ready, it has provided that RAM upgrade to these basic devices, and it's going to trickle into more devices, which is just awesome for people that are looking at entry-level models, and now they get a little bit more without paying a little too much. So there's my thoughts on that, and if you enjoyed this, give it a thumbs up. And like always, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments, you can drop them in the comment section down below. And like always, take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next video.